From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up on AgDay, creating a beautiful mosaic among the leaves. We'll check in on the fall foliage. Wild weather, creating some strange scenes. And we're seeing the devastating effects of Hurricane Michael on Georgia's cotton crop.
We don't get much snow down here in South Georgia, but it looks like a snowfall because they've lost probably a bale of cotton or more.
AgDay, brought to you by the Chevy Silverado, the most dependable, longest-lasting full-size pickups on the road.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. President Trump gets a first-hand look at the damage in Florida and Georgia from Hurricane Michael. He tweeted out, quote, "Also thinking about our great Alabama farmers and our many friends in North and South Carolina today. We are with you." We're getting a better idea of the damage to crops following the hurricane. Some cotton fields blanketed with cotton, which blew to the ground due to wind and rain, especially in Georgia. We talked with a plant pathology expert. AgDay's Betsy Gibbons spoke to him about what he's seen so far.
Is the damage catastrophic is what you've been hearing? I would say yes, it is. It's not catastrophic everywhere in terms of 100% yield loss, but some of my colleagues have been out and I've seen losses in fields 80, 90, 100%, they can't harvest. Other fields where you would drive by and say, well, that cotton looks pretty good, but when you look at the ground, it looks like it snowed. We don't get much snow down here in South Georgia, but it looks like a snowfall because they've lost probably a bale of cotton or more. Yes, they can still harvest 63%, 65, 70% of their cotton, but the 30%, 40% that's on the ground may have been what their profit was going to be for the year.
Kimmerite says there are also losses to the peanuts. Some were blown right off the field. He also visited gins and peanut warehouses. He said there is some damage to infrastructure around the state, causing slowdowns. Georgia's Department of Agriculture is coordinating efforts to assist recovery in southwest and central Georgia. Those are the areas most affected by Hurricane Michael. Georgia's Agriculture Commissioner is saying crops, animals, and infrastructure all have taken a substantial hit. This is the third straight year Georgia's pecan growers have dealt with a hurricane. Now, farmers in the path of Hurricane Matthew in 2016 lost up to 1/3 of their operation. Last year, Hurricane Irma resulted in a 30% loss statewide, and Hurricane Michael was stronger than the previous two hurricanes. Both vegetable and cotton farmers were expecting a profitable year this year. The Hurricane Michael hit the crop at their most vulnerable state. Only 15% of the cotton, 30% of the vegetables were harvested. Those crops now considered a total loss.
It is our worst dreams, I believe, are being realized. I have seen in pictures this morning of cotton that was being harvested yesterday. It was an outstanding yield of 3 bales an acre. And today, where the farmer stopped this morning, you cannot tell where he stopped harvest and where the rest of it was harvested by the storm.
And we have new numbers from USDA when it comes to cotton. It estimates crop production to be at nearly 19.8 million bales. That's above last month's forecast, but more than 1 million bales below last year. Yields in the southeast portion of the country are projected to be at 950 pounds per harvested acre. That's the second highest on record. And that's despite significant decreases in the Carolinas and Virginia from Hurricane Florence. However, the effects of Hurricane Michael are not entirely known and will have to be included in future estimates. We have a new look at cotton harvest. These numbers released by USDA shows about 1/3 of the cotton crop has been picked nationwide, but quality of the Georgia crop, it's in steep decline. Only 16% now good to excellent. On corn, in the 18 major growing states, 39% of that crop is now harvested. That's more than the 5-year average of 35%. Iowa still struggling, however, just 17% harvested. As for soybeans, 38% has been cut. That's way behind the 5-year average of 53%. But look again at Iowa, just 19% now harvested. It's usually about half done by now. As for the condition of those soybeans, 66% now good to excellent, down slightly from this time last year. Could a trade summit really happen with China? Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin says he's pushing for a summit between President Trump and China's President Xi Jinping, but no final decision has been made to hold that meeting. It's rumored the possible meeting could happen at next month's G20 summit in Argentina. Meanwhile, there's concern China could sell off its stockpile of U.S. treasuries in retaliation for the trade war. But Mnuchin telling CNBC it's not something he's losing any sleep about. China is reportedly dealing with another new case of African swine fever. This time, Reuters reports it's on a farm with nearly 20,000 pigs. That marks the largest farm yet to report on the highly contagious disease. A statement did not identify the farm, but said it was in Jinzhou City. Pig prices have dropped in northeast China. That's after producers were unable to transport their pigs out of infected provinces. In the U.S., USDA is set to approve a vaccine license for African swine fever virus. USDA's Agriculture Research Service says it intends to approve a license for Zoetis to market its vaccine for the virus. Harvest time slowed or even stopped in areas of the plains. Meteorologist Cindy Clausen has more in today's crop comments. Good morning, Cindy.
Thanks, Clinton. Well, the wild harvest season continues. Check out the situation right now in southeastern Nebraska. This picture sent to us by David Nelson. He says on Twitter, quote, "Can somebody please verify the date? My calendar seems to be malfunctioning." Well, the situation is much the same in South Dakota, with some places having seen 4 inches of snow, and right now, no harvesting is going on. Let's take a look at the winds as we head throughout your day, and it looks like the far northeast and, of course, the Four Corners region, the southwest, are going to be the areas to watch. Over into the Great Lakes as well as we head through the day. Those are kind of the prime areas. Even into the northern plains, we're going to see those winds in that 15 to 25 mile per hour range. Into the overnight hours we go, things slacken off a little bit for everybody but parts of the southwest, and then we start to see those winds picking up again as we head through your Wednesday. I'll have your forecast coming up in just a few minutes. Clinton.
All right, thanks, Cindy. More proof of just how wild the weather's been lately. Check out these videos shared on Facebook by Jim Brown. One day, Jim was out kayaking in his flooded field. This is in northwest of Des Moines, Iowa, and just 24 hours later, there was snow, and he decided to try his hand at cross-country skiing. Now, Jim says he's only about 20% harvested. He says he hopes to be back in the combine later this week. And look at this video from Texas. You can see tiny ice crystals or snow grains. The video taken by the National Weather Service in Amarillo, just outside their front door. It wasn't a lot of snow, but enough to sit for a while on this corn in the Texas Panhandle. Our thanks to Robert Freeman for sharing this picture. Remember, you can share your pictures with us anytime on AgDay TV Twitter page. We're getting a better picture of the impact tariffs are having on farmers. That's coming up. And later, we check out this year's fall colors in the country. In agribusiness, let's see how markets started the week in Chicago, the CME Group.
Soybeans were soaring. Finally, we haven't seen this in quite a while. The weather delays in the harvest really had the futures break out to the upside finally from the channel that we've been stuck in, really grinding higher. It was adding to the rally that started really in September 19th, so a couple of weeks ago. Commercial longs are still at their all-time low, and it makes it kind of interesting that they didn't really jump on board. These weather delays really lifted the futures, and it looks like it's going to create a lot more volatility and push this market higher. Weather is still cold, wet, rainy, snowy, and that's why also corn is rising. The crop damage is a real possibility, and so we're watching that. With the exports at an all-time high here, the problems in the field is an issue, and so it's keeping futures, churning higher and higher. That's all from the floor at the CME Group here in Chicago. I'm Virginia McGathy.
We hear a lot about tariffs, but what impact are they really having right now on producers? Tyne Morgan spoke with one ag economics expert at Iowa State University.
Here now with John Crespi of Iowa State University. Recently, they did a study on the impact of the tariffs on Iowa's economy. Some interesting findings. Just highlight what that study showed, John.
Well, the study was done during the summer and leading up into September, before the new trade deals have been announced with Canada and Mexico and Korea. But at that time, we were looking at whether or not what would be the overall impact to the Iowa economy. So we didn't just look at agriculture, we looked at every industry in Iowa. And some benefit, some lose, but overall the impacts were between $1 and $2 billion total impact on the gross state product. Iowa's gross state product is about $140 billion. So, it comes out to be about, actually I said $190 billion. So it comes out to be about 1 to 2% of the Iowa gross state product.
What is the industry that loses the most with this trade war and all of these tariffs?
The most overall was the pork industry, and that makes sense. It's a high-valued commodity, and exports is such a huge part of that industry. but corn and soybean were up there as well. There were a couple industries that actually benefited from the tariffs. But
like what industries?
Oh, we have some industries that actually are metal producing industries in Iowa, and they benefit because there's a tariff on aluminum and steel.
So what are the long-term implications of this? You know, we've talked to some economists who are really concerned about not only today, but what this means tomorrow.
Yeah, and it's a huge concern. We haven't had a big trade war for an awfully long time, but we do know that when you have a big trade war, farmers are always on the front lines of that, and in the middle of a trade war, other countries who maybe weren't producing or not producing at the levels that the United States farmers were producing at will knock on those doors, and sometimes the longer these go on, the more likely it is for U.S. farmers to lose market share. That's the big concern.
All right, John, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. We need to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back right here on Ag Day.
Welcome back to Ag Day here with Cindy Clausen. Cindy, as we look at this map, we see the rain in Texas, but boy, it got cold there to start the week.
Yeah, that has been kind of a monster front with some very cold air behind it. We just have rain for Texas today, and unfortunately, it's more rain for a lot of folks. So let's go ahead and take a look at the map. And yeah, we're going to be seeing more rain, especially Texas, Louisiana, areas in the western Gulf Coast that have seen actually a fair amount of rain over the past couple of days. We're going to be seeing fairly dry conditions, though, in a good chunk of the country. So it's really along this front in the southeast and into the Gulf Coast states. We've got a little bit of moisture, rain, and unfortunately some snow for parts of the northeast. And we've got another front that's going to be coming through, bringing some rain and maybe even a little bit of snow into parts of the Great Lakes. Here we go as we head through the day, and notice a lot of the areas in between are going to be dry. So some of the corn belt that's been fairly wet, you might have a chance to dry out just a little bit today. As we head through the overnight hours, the low pressure still continues to push on off to the east. We'll start to see rain kind of breaking up at least a little bit, but notice in western Texas, our model is still showing a fair amount of rain in some spots. High pressure controlling the northern parts of the Rockies, but we're still seeing some rain and upper elevation snow in the Four Corners region. Heading through Wednesday, high pressure starts to slip into the middle of the country, so the Corn Belt gets even more time to dry out. Still some scattered showers in parts of Texas and into Florida with that stationary front, and we'll have to watch out for some snow and some rain in parts of the northeast. Now, as far as the past 24 hours, boy, it has been heavy in parts of Texas, anywhere from 1 to 2, even up to 3 inches in spots, perhaps even localized areas with more than that. Otherwise, it's just been along that front and that low pressure system in the northeast. As we add on the next 24 hours, you're going to see that movement, and we're going to add even more rain into parts of Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, even up into the Tennessee and Ohio Valley. And we're going to be looking at, again, that rain and snow in the northeast and into southeastern Canada as well. Four Corners region, some rain and upper elevation snow. And as we take through the next 24 hours, most of that just to the north of the border. But again, there's going to be a few spots, especially in the Four Corners region and maybe in the far northeast in the upper Great Lakes that might see a little bit of snow there. Temperature-wise, we are a lot cooler in a lot of the country. The real warm weather down in Florida. Into the overnight hours we go, and we're going to see low temperatures in the 30s and 40s all the way down into parts of the Tennessee and Ohio Valley. Still warm in the southeast. And then as we get into tomorrow afternoon, we'll see still some pretty cool temperatures across a good chunk of the country. Jet stream cutoff low still remains in the southwest, a trough across the Great Lakes in the northeast, but we still see some pretty warm temperatures out west with a big ridge developing once again, big trough in the eastern country as we get into the weekend. And then we're going to be seeing a continued trough in the Great Lakes. Still some pretty warm air all the way up into southern Canada. That's your national forecast. Now let's check on the weather where you live. Pinehurst, Idaho, sunny and warmer for you today with a high of 62 degrees. Dublin, Texas, showers and thunderstorms, heavy rain possible with a high of 43. Logan, West Virginia, partly cloudy and cooler today with a high of 59.
How much do people really know about plant-based milk, the findings, and what dairy industry leaders have to say? Next.
Ag Day, brought to you by Instinct and N-Serve nitrogen stabilizers. They don't just stabilize nitrogen, they maximize it, so crops deliver the max in return. Learn more at maxinmaxout.com.
An online survey from the International Food Information Council finds 3/4 of people know that plant-based milk does not contain cow's milk. The findings come during A time when the FDA may change its labeling policy with dairy products, the administration raising the question about whether plant-based milk alternatives labeled as milk might confuse and mislead consumers. There is currently a public comment period in place. The dairy industry saying the issue is something they've fought for decades.
What we have to do now over the next couple of months is provide information and data to the FDA to illustrate the extent of the problem. We have a lot of data already that shows that people don't always know that an almond beverage or a soy drink does not have the same amount of vitamins and minerals and protein as real milk.
Some organizations feel there is enough room for everyone under the milk labeling for plant-based replacements. 62% of people asked in the survey say they only buy dairy milk, 38% buy non-dairy. Prices are putting pressure on U.S. dairy producers, but Canadian dairy farmers say they have their own struggles. We spoke with Canadian dairy industry leaders at World Dairy Expo in Madison, Wisconsin. They expressed concern about profitability as they try to milk more cows to get the same amount of revenue. Currently, Canada is involved in some trade deals without the U.S. That includes the Trans-Pacific Partnership. But some are worried that Canada's dairy industry may be hurt due to tariff cuts.
We got quota cuts. Compensation was offered. Compensation went only to those who got approved, and in order to get approved you had to do investment into or on your farm. And then there was a random, you got lucky. At the farm level, anytime there's a quota cut, that quota cut, we lose quota. We lose access to the market.
Vander Linden says there are some potential deals which could cut into Canada's quota system by possibly 18%. Are you starting to see more fall colors where you live? Why, some parts of the country may see some delays. Next.
Keeping track of the shifting market prices has never been so easy. Get the latest commodity prices sent directly to your cell phone with market updates. Just text Markets 8 to 31313 to get started.
In the Country, sponsored by Kubota. Discover the power behind the M6 series at Kubota.com or visit your local Kubota dealer today.
If you're ready for fall foliage in some parts of the country, you may have to wait a little longer. Researchers at University of Tennessee's Institute of Agriculture say the peak season for autumn colors is happening later and later in many years. It's often stretching into November. Charles Denny explores why that may be the case in the country.
This video was shot last fall, just days before Thanksgiving. The autumn colors were beautiful around Knoxville. It just seemed to take a while for them to get here. As for 2018, early predictions are for most of Tennessee to have a spectacular fall color-wise.
For a leaf color to occur to get the vibrant colors, you want to be someplace in between. You don't want to have too much rain or too little rain.
Wayne Clatterbuck with the UT Institute of Agriculture says conditions are shaping up across the state for a nice fall. In Wayne's world, for the best colors, you want warm sunny days and cool nights. When it comes to foliage, Clatterbuck says Tennessee is right up there with any state in the nation.
Yeah, we have, more than 80 different species of hardwood trees, and each species has its own little pattern, so it all comes together in a mosaic, if that's the best way of putting it, to give you that vibrant color. We'll have some trees that turn color earlier, and we'll have some trees that turn color later.
So how much later? Happy birthday to me. I'll turn a year older, October 20th. Feel free to celebrate accordingly. But I also point that date out because October 20th used to just about be the peak time for foliage in Tennessee. Nowadays,
in the past, it used to be peak color, seemed to be the Alabama football weekend, but it's delayed, at least in the lower elevations, about a week or so, and it's getting to be peak color is like Halloween and into the first week of November now, especially in the valleys.
Clatterbuck says we've experienced climate variability, warmer temperatures later in fall, and the leaves are responding. But a late fall and longer viewing season is a good thing, especially when it comes to tourism in the Smokies, where color happens earlier in higher elevations.
In Tennessee, it's pretty neat because you'll have a long time for leaf color if you are willing to go from different elevations and so forth.
When a leaf changes color, technically it's dying. But what a spectacular finale. Color is coming, just be patient. This is Charles Denny reporting.
That's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. Spend part of your day with us. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.